Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Wednesday live program. Great to be here with you. Those of you in the studio, thank you for being here. Always nice to have a live audience. And want to shout out to Dov's audience, all of the folks that know Dov. Thank you for being with us. Humanities Team, Humanities Stream Plus. Those that are with Sign Network, John Raymer, Summer Raymer, welcome. Nice to have you all with us here as well. So this is a live program, unscripted, and I'm here, as you can see, with a guest that I'm very excited about, Dov Baron. He's the guy of the Dov Baron Show. I'll give him a proper introduction here in a moment. This is a live program, so if you've got questions or comments or things that you want to bring in, put them in the chat. We'll try and get to them here during the hour. Got a real exciting program in store. Okay, we're calling this program Creating Cultures of Belonging. And that theme actually has some multiple dimensions to it. One, a masterclass that Dov created for the Humanity Stream Plus streaming platform and community, and also a book that's coming out soon. So, a lot to talk to. We've actually got clips from his program that we're going to be bringing on as well. So, super excited about this program. Let me give Dov a proper introduction, and then I'll welcome him to the show. So, Dov Baron is a speaker, facilitator, podcast host, and best-selling author. Dov is a preeminent expert on creating cultures of belonging because, as he says, fitting in is not the same thing as belonging. We'll get to that. That's something to think about, isn't it? Dov has been named a top 10 global leadership guru by Times and Inc. magazine, top leadership speaker twice. He is the creator and host of the Dov Baron Show podcast, previously known as Leadership and Loyalty, named the number one podcast for Fortune 500 executives by Apple Podcasts. So, wow, that's saying something. He's written for or been interviewed by many media outlets, including CEO World, CNN, Ellie Italia, Entrepreneur, and Fox. And again, big welcome to you, Dov. Thank you for being here with me.
Thank you, Steve. It's a pleasure and honor. I'm excited to have this conversation. Looking forward to serving.
And this is Dov's thing, as you're going to hear. This is what he'll come back to again and again during the program and on his podcast that he's here to serve. So, boy, in today's world, don't we need that? So,
Just a
Dov,
little.
really, we
A
all need to
smidge.
serve.
Just a smidge.
Actually, we could all step up here in today's world. We're going to talk about that. You wanted to say something, Dov?
No, I'm just saying we need it just a smidge.
Right.
Just a
Yeah, just a
sprinkle.
smidge. Well, yeah, from our perspective, it's the bell ringing moment, I'll call it, from the humanities team perspective. And of course, we're a 23-year-old 501c3 nonprofit, and our whole thing is living consciously. So, and part of that is awakening to this underlying unity and oneness. So, the spiritual literacy says that there is an underlying unity and oneness. That's what being literate spiritually means. That's kind of at the center. And Einstein, over 100 years ago, said the greatest illusion in the world. It's the illusion of separation. So, and yet we're still kind of living into that on this planet. So, humanities team is all about elevating consciousness, living into this deeply connected planet, and creating a planet that works and that means that we're going to all probably become a little more open-hearted and more in service. So, which is why I'm excited about this interview. Dov, let's just jump right in here and just talk about maybe some of the reasons that you see that we need to serve. So, and especially where you're actually focusing on the challenges as you see it. Let me get to something that's interesting. You say that this great resignation and quiet quitting phenomena, okay, and we're all familiar with this in today's world, right? You're saying that this great resignation and quiet quitting phenomena, that these are not problems to be solved. You're saying that they are dramatic symptoms of a corporate cultural disease. So that's pretty big. Can we start out talking about that?
Yeah, I think that the way to understand it is simply that quiet quitting and the great resignation all happened apparently as a result of COVID, a pandemic, and the shutting down of the world. But in many ways, I would describe that event, as in COVID, as the great pause. And what I mean by that is that we're all so caught up in the hustle of we got to get things done, we got to be successful, we got to be more, we got to do more to prove our worthiness. And what happened during COVID was we all got pushed off that treadmill. We all landed on our asses and went to go, why am I doing this again? I was running so fast on that treadmill of life, I didn't even think about why I'm doing it. And we stopped and we went, do I really need a bigger house that I'm never in? Do I really need a faster car that I only get to drive to work? Do I really need to miss some more of my family events? Yeah, maybe not. And so we began to, there was a pause, and that pause was there to help us question what was happening. After the pandemic, we were all allowed to go back out into the world. And as a result, people began to reassess. Now, the problem was, I wrote about this and spoke about this and did lots of trainings on it. The problem is when you get to go back, what are you going back to? Because during the pandemic, we all said, oh, I can't wait to get back to normal. And I said, normal isn't healthy. Normal's what we've got used to, and it's a corporate disease. It's eating away at the people who are in it, and it's eating away at the organizations, and that we need to address that disease more than anything. So we need to take this pause that was given to us to allow ourselves to evaluate, is this what I really want? Is this who I really am? Is this how I really want to operate in the world? So that's what I mean by that.
Boy, I love it. I mean, in fact, don't you think this is why COVID came along? Was precisely for this reason, was to just create this opportunity for pause, for reflection, for going to our interior place where we're saying, is this really why I came into this life? Am I fulfilled by the direction that I'm heading in this life? It feels to me like that's why COVID came in, and so then inferring from that that down through the history of time, things actually happen to support us, even challenging things like COVID, that where a lot of people transition from the planet. But there was a reason. There's some silver lining, and this was it, wasn't it?
Well, I think that it's very easy to see what you just said as complete woo woo, right? And just write it off. And that's fine. In honestly, that's fine. You can do that. But here's the thing to consider. What if it's not true? And what if it is true? What I mean by that is, here's what I know about life. As you know, my work is based on the emotional source code. And the second level of the 5 levels of the emotional source code is around meaning. And your life is driven by the meaning you give it, or rather, the meaning you gave it in order to survive your environment. And so here's the thing. If you give COVID the meaning of this was a horrible, terrible thing that happened to us, and there's no rhyme and no reason for it, and or you go, COVID is this moment of pause. It gave us all a chance to recenter ourselves and ask ourselves deeper spiritual questions about meaning and purpose and why I'm alive and the difference I'm making. Which one of those gives you a better outcome on your life? Which one of those gives you a better way to look at your life? So let's take out whether it's spiritual. Let's take out whether it's a change in mindset. Just asking yourself the simple question, does applying this meaning give my life a greater level of depth? Does it give me a way to start afresh? Does it give me a way to correct course? Or does it work better for me to feel like a victim of a system, a victim of a event? And I would put it to you that even if you are not particularly a spiritual person, or you don't want to put yourself in that category, that's fine. Simply go to the category of, does this help me to function better in the world as a better human being? Because ultimately, whatever you believe, if you're a decent human being, you want to be a decent human being. You're aspiring to be a better human being. And that is what our humanity is pulled to, despite all the nonsense that we're surrounded with. So I agree with you. I think I believe, it's not the truth, it's what I believe. I believe that these things, these tragedies of our lives happen for a reason. And I choose to believe that as well as I do believe it. Those are distinctions. As you know, I fell 120 feet off a mountain, got smashed to pieces back in 1990. It ended my life as I knew it. Everybody went, "Oh my God, it's terrible." And now I can say, years after, it was the greatest gift I ever received up until that moment. Did it feel like a gift at the time? Hell no. If somebody had said to me, "This is a blessing," I would have punched them in the throat. Like that didn't feel like a blessing. It felt horrible. And everything about my life was gone. And that may have been what happened to you as you listen, watch this, when you were hit by COVID or 2008 or any other tragedy. I believe these tragedies are there to help us to wake up from how I've been, and wake up to what it is that we've laid dormant within ourselves.
Yeah, so amen to that. And gosh, I would hope we're past the thought that what we're discussing now is woo-woo. And years ago, I know people were feeling that's true today. In today's world, just look out your window. Is everything working well? Are you pleased as a parent to be leaving today's world to your children and future generations, right? Um, Almost everybody I know, including non-parents, would say, no, I'm not comfortable with what's unfolding and the future that we're leaving to kids and future generations. Almost everybody's together on that.
I
And then
agree.
it's just, okay, so then what is the root problem? What's the source of all of this? And that's what I think we're talking about here now. And of course,
But what you're talking about here now is personal responsibility for understanding that you are adding to the collective consciousness. And being passive about that just doesn't work. So if you don't like it, you don't get to just sit back and complain. You
right.
get to be upset, but using that as a fire on your butt to move you forward to do something that will make a difference. That's important. That matters to all of us. And one of the greatest ways to do that, and now we have massive research around this, is to build community, which is what you do with Humanity Stream here, is that getting this understanding of we need community. This is what human beings are. We are tribal beings. And if we don't have community, our mental, emotional, and physical health all suffer.
Yes, so the name then again of this masterclass that Dov has on Humanity Stream Plus is called Creating a Culture of Belonging. So all of you in the studio or stream members and get your hands on this. Go through this program. It's fantastic. That's why we're doing this live program with Dov today, is to we'll just talk about actually today's current events, which we're getting to, but also to let you know if you're not aware, creating a culture of belonging is a terrific masterclass that you should go through. And I think we're putting a link in the window so you can find it. Now, one of the key points you were just getting to that you share is really important: the power of tribes and how we can find and design ours. And do you want to just say another word about that, Dov?
Yeah, I think what's really important, all of us to recognize that, as you talked about earlier, Steve, COVID changed us. And most of that was not positive. So look around. We all know that most of us didn't ever go back to being the same level of social we were before the pandemic. We were all free to go to the movies, to go to the bowling club, to play bridge with our friends, or go to the mall or whatever it is, and yet we don't. And that is fundamentally damaging. And so, what we have to understand is that now that responsibility is falling on others. It's falling on you, it's falling on me, it's falling on corporations. And as I tell many of the big corporations and big leaders that I work with, is you have to create a community for your business, because people are coming to work for community, and they won't come if there's no community. Why would they? They can do their work from home. It's inconvenient to travel on the bus or whatever it may be, or drive in. So let's have them have a good reason to come in. Let's have them have a reason to want to be part of this. That is vitally important. So if we don't do that, not only are we damaging cultures, but just as an example, there's almost $9 trillion, $8.9 trillion, trillion with a T, in lost revenue, productivity, and innovation due to loneliness. We've all free to go out, we're all free to interact, and yet we're more lonely than we've ever been. Why is that? And what can we do about it? Are vitally important questions that we must hold responsibility for dealing with, whether you are a corporate leader or a leader of your family or a leader of your community.
Beautiful and well said. So, again, there's this book that's coming out. It is not out now, Creating Cultures of Belonging, but there's a program that Dov has created called the Loneliness Tax that really kind of goes down deep into this. We're putting a link in the chat and invite you to click on that link. This whole, actually there's a lot more, but it gets into this aspect of tribe, creating our own tribe, and so much more. We're going to actually dive into some of the other topics that are important and related to this. So one of the things, Dov, you share is that there are core mistakes that a leader can and often does make in any organization. Let's go down into that one.
How many hours do we have for this? So,
Right.
I mean, one of the simplest things is understanding that we cannot lead the way we led. It just won't work. We can't even lead the way we led 5 years ago, let alone 25 years ago, because now it's all about culture. When I wrote my book which was called Creating Culture, no, Fiercely Loyal, I apologize, my last book, Fiercely Loyal, in that book I said, build a business and put a community in it. In my new book, I say I was wrong in the first book. The answer is build a community and put a business in it. Business is community. People will only buy from people they trust and this is the proviso that's important to recognize, the most convenient. Most of us are not fans of Jeff Bezos, right? I don't know too many people who are fans of Jeff Bezos. So why do we all buy from Amazon? It's very simple. The second largest addiction of human beings, second, not first, is convenience. It's convenient. It's not cheaper. You can go down the store, you'll buy it cheaper, but it's convenient. It comes to your door. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to get out in the rain or whatever it might be. So this is our fundamental Achilles heel, is that we trade convenience over connection. We trade approval over trade approval over acceptance and authenticity. We need to come back to these things, but that requires us to step up. And so leaders are failing miserably when it becomes about productivity. And part of that, in this context of creating cultures of belonging, is this. And this is the fundamental flaw. It used to be we hired people for a fit. And we'd say, well, we'll get you a nice pair of khaki pants and a soft collared shirt. And as long as you eat, sleep, breathe, and believe our culture, you're in. And so what people did was they packed away parts of themselves. They disenfranchised parts of themselves, just like they had to do in their childhood in order to survive the lunatic asylum of their childhood. And I don't say that with any disrespect to anybody. As John Bradshaw said, 97% of families are dysfunctional, and the other 3% are, his words, effing liars. So there's a level of dysfunction, meaning your needs are not met. And so as a result of that, we pack pieces of ourselves away. We say, well, I can't have that. We push it away from ourselves. If you go into a culture of fitting in, that's exactly what you're doing. But here's what's fascinating. If you create a culture of belonging, you invite people in to show up not just for their job, but for their passion, for their purpose, for their meaning. And so they go, yeah, I know you hired me as this, and I want to do that, and I'm going to do it great. But is there room for me to do that too? Because I just have a passion for that, and I've never had space. And you go, absolutely. And some of your most innovative ideas will come from people who are not directly related to the role. That is vitally important. You want more innovation? that's where you go. And in that special report that you just mentioned, which is called the loneliness um, tax, which is the link is in the thing there. That's the thing we talk about, that loss of almost $9 trillion in innovation. And it's because people are A, lonely, and B, when they're not lonely, they're as in surrounded by others, they don't have room, they don't have space to exude who they are, their passion, their love, their vibrance of who they are. They have to keep themselves in the restricted box. And that's the number one mistake of leaders.
Yeah, boy, that reminds me of, first of all, it's true today, but reminds me of my days back in with IBM in the 80s, when I
Oh,
went in
yeah.
to start my own company, and then we went in a we went in a very different direction. We went in the direction of things we're talking about here now in these companies that I started in Silicon Valley. But so the other thing you bring in this is rich, this loneliness tax and this new book that's coming out, and so you say that leaders can learn from millennials, women, and artists who all exhibit cognitive diversity. So let's go down into that one. That
Thank
one,
you. I really appreciate you bringing that up because we all know that in this era, the word diversity is a swear word in this era. But
right?
when I talk about diversity, I'm not talking about race or gender or any of those kinds of things. I'm talking about cognitive diversity. People who are willing to think in a way that I don't think. So, for instance, Steve, I have somebody who works for me who does a specific job, and she is magnificent at it, like insanely good at it, right? And she'll say to me, "Have you seen the spreadsheet?" And like you can see the excitement in her face as she's saying, "Have you seen the? It's so good." And I'm like, "I want you to know something." She goes, "What?" I said, "I am never going to look at a spreadsheet." She goes, "But it's so good." I go, "Yeah, and that's why you do it, because you are excited about it. I have no interest in it, but I love that you love it, and I know that I need it, so I can trust you entirely to do it." This is so vitally important for us, is to honor where people can be in their own strength, in their own power, in their own greatness, and you don't have to be that. So when you hire people based on understanding that they don't have to be like you, it's so powerful. So when we talk about cognitive diversity, we're talking about that. People who don't think like me. So I believe the world is changed by children, women, and artists. Those are the three dominants. Now we think the people in charge are the old men who look like me. They've got white hair and they're old farts. No, we don't change the world. We might catalyze some things, but we don't change the world. The world is changed by women, artists, and particularly teenagers. And the answer is this: women whisper into the ears of their children. Women have the power of influence from day one. They influence their children. If we don't look after women, if we don't treat women in a way that holds their value and everything that they can bring to the world, and the way that they look at the world with deeper levels of compassion and empathy, because it's safer for them to do it than it is for men. Men do it, of course, but it's not as safe. If we don't do that, then how are we facilitating the next generation? We're not. And then you have a child, and your child is amazing, and you fall in love, and it's wonderful. And you couldn't be more in love than with your own child. And then your child becomes a teenager, and they're a freaking horror show. Like, they don't like you, you're an idiot, you don't know anything about anything, and they want to hang out with their friends. And that's a natural development. Just so you understand that. That's a natural development. It's an important part of the human development of individuals. They should be rebelling against you because up until that time, your beliefs are their beliefs. And they're now saying, "I don't know if I believe that, Dad. I don't know if I am a Republican or if I am a Democrat or if I am a X or a Y or a Z." They want to fight against you because they're trying to find themselves. That rebellion is vitally important. And in it, they will question the fundamental beliefs of those who've influenced them. And as a result, they're challenging reality. And they grow up into, if they've been nurtured well, artists. Now, let me be clear. Artists are not people with paint and canvas. That's a form of art. It's not the form of art. When I was a child, up to about, well, by the time I was 11, my art was in galleries. Everybody I knew thought I was going to be an artist, including me. I don't paint or draw at all anymore. And I was giving a presentation to a startup, and I was asked because they had invited all, like, bring your kids to it as well. And this young girl asked, she said, "You said you were going to be an artist. You were supposed to be an artist. Do you miss that?" And I said, "No, if to miss it would be to think about it and think, I wish I was that. I don't do that." And at the end of the presentation, she said to me, "Thanks for your input." And I said, "No, no, hold on. I want to thank you." And she goes, "Why?" I said, "You asked me an important question. Like, do I miss being an artist?" And I said, "I don't." And I realized why, since I've been talking. And she said, "Why?" I said, "Do you know the story of David?" And she goes, "No." I said, "When Michelangelo created David, they asked him, 'How did you create David from a piece of marble? Like, it's such spectacular work.' And Michelangelo said, 'I didn't. I just chipped away everything that wasn't David.' I am still an artist because that's the work that I do with individuals. I take away what's not truly who they are, what they've taken on. So artists change the world. Artists challenge us to look at the world in a different way. Artists, whether in the form of comedians or writers or musicians or any other form that can be a greatly creative leader, that's an artist who's challenging you and I to look at the world differently. So that's why those are the three most powerful, innovative groups.
Beautiful. As you know, Dov, I think you know one of the things we've been sharing in humanities team is we call it the Galileo moment, right? So Galileo in the early 17th century says ultimate reality is not what we think it is. The Earth is not the center of the universe. I have research that demonstrates this true. All of what satellite communications, security, all of the things we have on the planetary basis, that was called the geocentric understanding. And then his research supported this heliocentric, they call it,
Yep.
research, which says the Earth is in a solar system, not at the center of the universe at all. We wouldn't have today's world without Galileo. And these things we're talking about now, we call it conscious living. It actually goes by many names. We could call it lots of things, diversity and unity, etc. But that ultimate reality really is not that we're just separate, not affecting each other, where we can just take resources and pump them through uh, processes to create top and bottom line growth without having effect on each other and the planet. It's a fiction.
It's
So,
a
and I
total
love,
fic.
you're shaking things up with everything, with all of this work that you're doing, Dov.
It's a total fiction, um, because as a leader, if you think about the impact you have, you might think it's the way that you say things or the agenda you put forward. But here's what you have to understand. You and I, and by the way, you can be a CEO of a massive organization, or you can be just a member of your own family. You're adding to the collective consciousness of your group. You're adding to that. So, what are you putting into that group? Not just with your actions, not just with your words, but with your very being. How are you being? And to do that, to make that difference, is the requirement of awareness. So one of the things I say to people all the time, I know people are very fixated on awareness, and I say awareness, it starts with awareness, but awareness is not enough. You have to take action upon that awareness. But if your awareness is limited, the action you will take will also be limited. And if you want to understand the level or depth of your own awareness, what is the level and depth of your awareness of yourself at an unconscious level? And the answer to that is, well, I'm unconscious. How the hell would I know? That's my unconscious. And the answer is this: when have you ever, and this is really important, I'm going to present to you a very powerful consideration. You might look at your mom and dad and think about, I'm pretending, of course, that you may have had a not so great childhood. And you might look at your mom and dad and you go, I'm a spiritual being, I've forgiven my parents. And honestly, I'm likely to get upset with you. And you go, well, why would you be upset about that? Because that's you, the adult, forgiving your parents. It's wonderful, it's great, it's marvelous, it's compassionate, but it actually doesn't have any consideration for that part of you that's still a child, stuck in that timeline, who is feeling the pain of that situation. Why don't you have some compassion and empathy for that? You're having compassion and empathy because your parent was terrible, because they had a terrible childhood. So what you're really doing is you're having compassion for your parent when they were a child and manifest as an adult, behaving in such a way with you as a child, but you miss the compassion for yourself. That level of understanding of compassion for what it was like to be little Steve or little Dov or little Doris or little whoever it was. What was it like? Because nobody was explaining, listen, your mom's nuts. And the reason she's nuts is because her dad was a horror. Nobody's explaining that to you. You don't comprehend that. You just look at the world and you say, I thought I was okay, but there must be something wrong with me because these people are treating me poorly. You need compassion and empathy for yourself as the child. That's the depth of your understanding, because that's what's driving your emotional source code. That's what's driving meaning in your life and giving you force in the world that may not be coming from your best possible place. You may have great intention. You may be an incredibly loving, kind, generous person, but that undercurrent is still there. We need a deeper love and compassion for ourselves. One of the things I will say to you is this: there are no adults. Everybody you meet is a wounded child in some way, shape, or form. And you need to have compassion for that. But don't have compassion for them as wounded children unless you've looked in the mirror and seen that wounded child within yourself. And when you do that, you'll have a greater level of compassion, a greater level of empathy, and a greater resonance that you will be pushing into your collective consciousness that you're part of. We are creating the morphogenetic fields that are creating our environment. They're influencing everything we do. Our intention arrives before we do. And if we're completely unconscious, even thinking we're conscious and using language of enlightenment, we're still unconscious and doing all kinds of damage. That is important in how you create your culture, whether your culture is a Fortune 500 or whether your culture is your own family.
Beautiful. Yes. Can't have enough compassion for ourselves and awareness. Actually, you covered a lot. I'm not going to even try and summarize that, but that was beautiful. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you, Dov. And let's go to, I shared at the beginning that we have these 4 short video clips from of Dov. I'd like to go to the first one, Jim. We got Jim Gray as our producer here today with Garth Catterall. Jim, let's play that first clip, and then Dov and I are going to come back and talk about it.
How does the Course solve the problems that you're facing? Well, it addresses things that have not been addressed before. It addresses the fact that for years, we've plowed money into creating these cultures of fitting in. And what does it mean? It means if you're going to fit in, you've got to shove yourself into a small hole. And many times we can feel like square pegs in round holes, to use a term. You're not going to get the best out of your people by doing that. So we want to show you how to create a culture of belonging where your people can come in with all of their magnificence. You see, one of the challenges you have is you're hiring from this sheet, asking people what they're qualified to do, but you're not asking them what else they can do. What other skills do they have that they can bring into the organization that you never even thought of? First of all, you're going to get to really understand it's not about you. It's going to really challenge you, yes. And if you're not challenged, understand this, you're not growing. If you don't want to grow, this is not the course for you. Click off now, come out. If you don't like being challenged, it's not the course for you. I'm going to challenge you, not because I want to challenge you for the sake of it, but because I want you to get the very best out of your life. And if you're not challenged, you're not growing. So it's not about you, but it's absolutely about you. What goes on in the world is not about you, but it's about you stepping into the magnificence, the greatness of who you are. We're going to talk about aha moments. You've had those, right? How many of those did you have last week at the course you took? You've had often them. You've probably got notebooks filled with aha moments. What are they? They're bragging rights. Bragging rights. You get to tell your friend, oh, I had this aha moment. This speaker said this, and oh, the light went on. What changed? Nothing. We're going to talk about what I call effort moments. You've got to have your effort moments. The moments where you cannot stand it one moment longer remaining the same. What gets you to that? What gets your people to that? So they fully buy in. That's what matters. We're going to talk about how all decisions are emotional. As rational as you like to think you are, you're not. That's not my opinion. It's neuroscience. So by tapping into those emotions, you can use them as fuel, because what you deny is not helping you. Your emotions are the fuel for the engine. The brain's the engine, fine, but you need the fuel, and that's what your emotions are. Learning how to recognize them, becoming fluent in them, and tapping into them, that's going to move you at rocket speed.
Okay, rocket speed it is. Yeah, that was beautiful. I'm glad we started with that clip. And again, this is from Dov's masterclass, Dov Baron's masterclass on Humanity Stream Plus. It's called "Creating Cultures of Belonging." So, wow, what a great start, where it's really challenging people to live their best life, and even when they're uncomfortable, and understanding that a lot of times they're emotional as they're kind of steering their ship. So there was a lot of wisdom in that clip. Before you respond, let me just share a few comments that are coming in here. So
Beautiful.
a guy named Hypnicity says, so this video gave me goosebumps. Okay, and then on YouTube, a comment just came in, wants to build a community. My dream is to build a permaculture community for the arts. Beautiful. So, we're agitating here. There's some ideas surfacing and goosebumps.
Magnificent.
Very cool.
And again, as long as those are not ahas, meaning they're not just stuff that stays in your head that you actually go do something with, that's fantastic. And you know what? I want you to know how much I appreciate that you putting those comments in there. Not just for me or for Steve, but this is for everybody who reads that and goes, oh, because here's the thing. One tiny, tiny difference can create this cascade of impact. So just you putting a comment there, somebody comes along, maybe doesn't even watch the stream. Maybe they're looking at it an hour later or 2 hours later and they say, oh, that's interesting. And that catalyzes something in them. You've made the difference in someone's life who you will never know. And that's amazing.
Totally agree. Yes, thank you. Thank you, friends out on social media. So, and we still have another, about 20 minutes to go. So throw your comments, questions, testimonies in the chat. We'll get to as many as we can here during the hour. This is so, I love this, Dov. And of course, you're doing this in your podcast every week. And I was on your podcast last year. What a beautiful moment.
Thank you for joining us, and thank you for the honor of being an exceptional guest.
Oh, Allison, it was my pleasure. We are absolutely looking at the same North Star and walking there. This perspective that the way we grew up. I grew up in the Catholic Church, and I was a CEO in Silicon Valley. With in venture circles and things. And the person that I've become today, you wouldn't even know. From that person. Because I did this, of, hey, let's be aware. Let's look at kind of how we grew up. Let's look at the world around us and challenge ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we can find this actually beautiful, we call it conscious way of living. You can call it lots of things, but boy, this is where you really find it, where it's fulfilling, and that financial riches alone can't provide. I know that from Silicon Valley, and I know you have guests on your program all the time that are bringing that home.
Yeah, I think that this is part of the challenge we all live in. We all bought into the American dream. Not that that's a bad thing. And when I say we all, I mean globally. That's why people moved to the United States or wanted to move to the United States, is because of the idea, of this American dream of the wealth and the ability to pull yourself up. But I know because my clients are often very successful entrepreneurs, CEOs, billionaires, athletes, entertainers, etc. And they get to a point where they go, I could buy a Bugatti, I could buy an island, I could buy another house in another country, but it's not working. It feels amazing. It feels great for a short period, and then it wears off entirely. And one of the tests I give these people, and this is really interesting, is I say, I want you to spend $30 a month on this product X, whatever it is, right? And I want you to spend $300,000 a month on product Y. Which is the easier decision? Now, which do you think is the easier decision? Think about it.
Yeah.
The answer is the $300,000 a month. It's not the $30,000 a month. The $30,000 a month puts them back in their old consciousness of where they came from, and they start penny picking. So people talk about very wealthy people being stingy. No, that's their emotional source code. That's how they grew up. That's what they're trying to do. Most people's success is driven by their wound. Most people's success is nothing more than a coping mechanism for dealing with the pain that they've not confronted yet. And so as a result, the more they accumulate, the more successful, the more accolades that they get, then the more they are pushed back into that place of what's missing?
Mm-hmm.
What's missing? Who can see me as a full-blown human? And the problem is that the coping mechanism of achieving more, it works. You feel better for a little while, but it wears off too fast. It's another line of Coke. It's another drink. It's another something. But it wears off. And when it wears off, the feeling is deeper and more wounding. And you can't fill the hole in your soul with stuff. That has to be filled at a very deeply spiritual level. And spiritual, I'm not talking about religion. Of course, you understand that, Steve. But I'm talking about a connection to something that is far deeper and more important than you. And that comes from your meaning that you can't, you're already operating on a meaning. So you can't just go with that one. But what is the true meaning of my life? What is the true purpose of my life? What is the difference I want to make? How do I want to impact the planet? Because I'll just tell you part of my purpose. My purpose is to impact the lives of people who will never know my name. To impact the lives of people who will never know my name and whose name I may never know. So maybe they're telling their grandchildren, you know, one day my dad told me this about something, and it's something they heard from me. It doesn't matter that they don't know my name. It doesn't matter that I don't know their name. But am I raising consciousness from the meaning I'm putting forward into the world and the purpose I'm putting forward into the world? And that's what I'm just challenging you to ask, because when you create a culture based on that, everything transforms. You will become more successful. You will become more profitable. But the value of it is amazing.
Yeah, not the sugar high that you were describing before. You can see why we have Dov on this program, because he's you know, a living example of everything that we stand for 23 years as a nonprofit. Okay, let's go to the next clip. There are four of them. I don't know that we'll have time to get to all four, but Jim, let's go to the next clip here, and then Dov and I will come back and talk about it.
You know as well as I do, we are living in times where change is happening more rapidly than we would ever imagined. Moore's law has been blown to pieces. We are faced with challenges and changes at every possible time. It's not just about surviving, it's about thriving. And that requires constant adaptation. And that only happens through innovation. Now, innovation is not a tweak. We go, oh, well, we're a very innovative company. Why? You tweaked the same thing 18 times? That's not innovation. Innovation is taking things off the rails. It's pushing outside of that comfort zone in ways that make you really, really stretch. So let me ask you, have you unconsciously been strangling the creativity and the innovation inside of your organization by creating this culture of fitting in rather than a culture of belonging? If you're going to create a culture of belonging, you have to have massive cognitive diversity. That means innovation and creativity is flowing at every possible level. Let me give you an example of this so you can understand what I mean. When we think about business or leadership, we tend to have a picture in our mind that says, well, the world is ruled by white men with silver hair. Us. But that's actually not true. Not when it comes to innovation, not when it comes to changes, not when it comes to challenging the status quo. And if you are going to be an innovative organization, you're going to have to challenge the status quo. Let's take for a minute, let's take three groups here who we kind of demean. Women, artists, and youth. We demean those three groups and we say, well, they don't really know. They don't have the experience. Well, let me just put it to you this way. Every mother is a woman. We can get into our gender arguments, but we're not going there. Every mother is a woman. And what do women do with their children? They whisper in their ear and they tell them how the world is. They are framing the children of tomorrow. And by the way, the majority of teachers are also women, whispering in the ears of our youth. And we dismiss the artists. They're out there, they're crazy. But the artists are the ones who are saying the things that are outside of the status quo. They're stating it in big, bold colors, in music, in poetry, in creativity. They're speaking to a future we can't even comprehend. They're looking into the face of adversity and saying what we fear to say. And the youth who stand in the street and say, this is not right, they are changing the world. The world is changed by these three groups who are very diverse cognitively from those of us who are leading. However, those leaders who are really stepping into themselves, who are really becoming the leaders of the future, who are creating these cultures of belonging that are deeply innovative, are listening to those people. They're listening to the divergent. They're listening to the youth.
Nice. Yes, they are listening to the youth, the women, the indigenous. There are so many groups that, as you share, are marginalized, and yet they're leading the way. And this whole future that we're talking about, a sustainable and flourishing planet, they are in the middle. Beautiful, Dov. Do you want to just emphasize any things here from
Just
this?
one thing I want to say to that, Steve, is this. You know, we talked about the pandemic, we've talked about personal tragedies, 2008, whatever it might be for you. But here's the thing. Humanity's Stream, this platform, is about raising consciousness. And I would want to challenge you as a member of this stream, as part of this community, to understand something that you may not want to have addressed. And that's this. I've been on this path, this quote, spiritual path, for 60 years. I know that's a long time and might seem ridiculous, but since I was a kid. And here's the thing I know with absolute certainty in my own life and in every person I've worked with over the last 40 years. And that's this. Enlightenment, whatever you call that, whether you want to make that about awareness or simply about change, or actually feeling connected to a divine presence, divine intelligence. Enlightenment isn't woo-woo. Enlightenment isn't, ah, and the angels sang. Enlightenment initially is an incredibly destructive process. Those who show up to destroy your reality are the path to your enlightenment. Whether you believe COVID was some conspiracy theory or something else, okay, I don't have a problem with you saying whatever you say. But at a personal level, can you see that it destroyed your reality as you knew it and made you question? Now, if you polarized, that's not an answer. That's polarity is heads and tails are the same coin. You have to go deeper than the polarization. When I fell off the mountain in 1990 and got smashed to pieces, I wanted to put myself back together again. But you can't put Humpty Dumpty together again, because if you do, it doesn't work. It's a facade. These things that are sent or we draw to us to destroy us are the birth of our enlightenment. They awaken us to something. And these divergent groups that I talked about are helping us to do that. This is why, you might not like this one, this is why Donald Trump is fantastic. Do I personally, as somebody who understands deep levels of psychology and neuroscience, like the guy? Hell no. Am I supportive of him? Absolutely not. You might be, and I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm not. But I also see that he's a phenomenal catalyst, because there's a lot of stuff we went, it's okay, no problem. It's not that bad. It's not that bad, which is a terrible weakness in human beings. We get comfortable. It's not that bad. And what he in this situation is doing is awakening us. What's going on in Russia and Ukraine is awakening us. It's painful, yes. But human beings are pretty bad at making change without pain, because we'll just slough it off. And so if you don't pay attention to the pain will increase. Believe me, that fall off the mountain, that was my 4th fall. Bit thick, slow learner, that's me. So I took 4 falls. Yours might be a twisted ankle. Yours might be a threat of a loss of income. It's all there to awaken you from who you've been, which is ego-driven. And by that, I'm not talking about that you were an egomaniac. I'm talking about survival mode. And it's there to wake you up to who your soul calls you to be. Those are different.
Yes, they are. And of course, we're talking about creating cultures of belonging. That's the masterclass that we're watching video clips from. We've seen 2. We're going to go in a second. I think there's time for one more. And of course, this is on the Humanity Stream Plus streaming platform, and it's really a community first and foremost. And then, yes, it's a global streaming platform, and right now it's the largest global streaming platform for consciousness raising, masterclasses, and education. We realized about a year and a half ago, as we were looking at libraries that are devoted just to consciousness raising, yes, we had become that. Over 200 masterclasses and educational programs there. So check it out if you're not already a member. And those of you that are here in the studio, thank you for being here live. It's always makes it fun, so that we're not just talking into Zoom here virtually. Dov and I are right here in the studio with you all live here as well. Okay, let's go to one more clip, and we'll talk about it. And this hour has gone fast. We don't have a lot more time, but wow, we're getting to some important points here, Dov, aren't we?
I think we are.
Okay, let's go to one more clip, and then we'll talk, and we're going to wrap it up.
I remember earlier I spoke to you about Dove. Remember their campaign for real beauty? And I said to you that Dove is a subsidiary company of the company Unilever, a multi-billion-dollar organization with many brands under its wings. Unilever has about 56,000 employees. That's pretty big. They took a random control group that hadn't been through their purpose workshop. Now remember I said to you when it came to Dove, they did a purpose training on that. They wanted to find out, what is the purpose of Dove? What is it about? What are we about as an organization? And they facilitated a true purpose. And they saw that it made such a massive difference that they decided to take everybody who worked at Dove and put them through the same training and see what happened. Then they took, again, a sample group who had not taken the training to see what had happened, to see how they could compare. This is what's fascinating. When we talk about bond, when we talk about creating a community of belonging, when we talk about purpose, you might be thinking, that's a lot of expenses for us to put out there. Well, what would it cost you if you had 56,000 employees and you put them all through it? Here's what Unilever found. 49% increase in intrinsic motivation. That means 49% increase in the motivation of this individual to serve the organization. A 30% increase in satisfaction with their jobs. And these people said, jobs did not change at all. So let's be clear. It's not like they suddenly got a foosball machine. They were 27% happier, not just in their job, but in their lives as human beings. Because when you're connected to your purpose, it doesn't just change your work, it changes the way you eat, sleep, breathe, and engage with others. Think about that. 77% more likely to go the extra mile. That's what they found. What would happen to your organization if 77% of your people were more likely to go the extra mile? We've got this elephant in the room I talked about before around engagement, and we throw money at it and we try to fix it, and it's all this external motivation. But what if it was internal? If 77% of your people said, I'll go the extra mile, they weren't looking for more money, they just believed. What would that do to your church, to your organization, to your corporation, to your youth group, to your nonprofit?
Yeah, it would do a lot. Would do a lot, So love it. Yeah, boy, we're this is a lot more than just agitating like a washer. It's surfacing this whole beautiful new, inspired, empowered, authentic way of living, huh?
And it's calling us to connect with each other at the deepest level. That's what it is. Calling us to connect to each other at the deepest level. And that's why I wrote that special report that I talked about, which is the loneliness text, which the link is in the notes there. But we have got to realize the impact of disconnecting from each other. We've got to realize the impact of that on business and on ourselves. And that's why I wrote the book that will be out in the fall, Creating Cultures of Belonging. We must do this. We can't afford to make people fit in anymore. We are called to bring people together. You want to be more successful in business? This is the way to do it. You want to be just a more satisfied human being? This is the way to do it. So whether you are a CEO of a Fortune 500 company or you're a single person working for yourself, you have to create a culture of belonging in every area of your life so that we feel soulfully connected, so that we can come home to each other, so that we can abandon this isolationist mentality that feeds into the political environment we're living in.
Yes, it does. The late Barbara Marx Hubbard shared she called it the one generation. And of course, mystics down through the ages have talked about this deeply interconnected, interrelated, and interdependent world, and even that there's this one consciousness with a capital C that we can live into. And of course, now science is just all over the place, even Nobel Prize for Physics entanglement, which is saying there's no physical connection. No, but we're deeply affecting each other, and distance isn't a limitation. So when you look at
distance and time, so understand that.
Yeah.
So if you separate a subatomic particle, and this was an experiment done in the 70s, separated an atomic particle and created 7-kilometer gap in one direction and 7 kilometers in the other. So there's 14 kilometers difference, and did something, interacted with one half of that subatomic particle, and then monitored what was happening on the other, exactly the same thing. And then, well, I wonder how fast that is. Like, how does that communicate? We don't know, but how fast is it? No time lag.
Yeah.
Space and time don't matter. What matters is how we are showing up. That's what matters.
Yeah.
So it's a great point, Steve. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. No, it's been just wonderful having you as a guest, Dov. And I'm reading now this material from Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, this French Jesuit priest. And boy, did he put it, he was a scientist and, of course, he was a Jesuit. So, deeply
Hmm.
spiritual, right? And then he wrote the Phenomena, all of these incredible books. And then the Jesuit leaders would not let him publish in his lifetime, would not let him publish. And so at the end of his life, he was living in New York City. He'd been sent there, from France. He was grew up in France as a Jesuit priest. And when he transitioned, only 10 people there at his ceremony. He wasn't known at all. His friends then took and published his books that talked about this unfolding higher evolution, these things that Dov is talking about here, that higher complexity, higher evolution, and that leads to what he called the omega point. And he said that's what's coming, the omega point where we who are part of creation know ourselves as part of creator one, that we're one. Then we're living into that. And that could sound woo-woo, but you know what? I believe that when I go to my pine box at the end of my life, that is going to be well understood by everybody. And Dov, part of the reason is you, and you're bringing it to the toughest audience. I'm a business person by background, and Fortune 500, that's a challenging audience to be bringing all of this to. So thank you for the calling that you have and the impact. And I love that they may not know, that Dov was the guy that said this, but it's the thing they're walking around with that they remember. And isn't that what's most important?
Definitely.
Yeah. So thank you, Dov Baron, for being on our program, creating cultures of belonging. Check it out. It's on Humanity Stream Plus. It's currently the lowest price streaming platform in the industry, $2.99 a year, $29.99 a month. And also, we're a nonprofit. There's a one for one where we give it away, especially outside of the United States, where people are on this conscious journey and they don't have that money. So
No.
we have a one for one program as well. Thank you all for being here with us today.
And
Just a
before you
marvelous.
go, Steve, can I just say something?
Please do. Yeah.
Okay, I just want to say, first of all, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. Second of all, I really appreciate everybody who put notes in the comments, and that was very important. And please feel free to reach out to me in person. You can do that at dov@dovbaron.com. You can go to dovbaron.com or find me on LinkedIn or whatever it is. I'd love to hear from you and what you're going to do with this. But the thing I want to say as I finish up here is about this platform, Humanity Stream. This is the example of what I'm talking about, of creating cultures of belonging. And I'm sorry, I don't mean, this is not a pressure, but you have a responsibility. You, my dear friend, listener, viewer, have a responsibility to feed cultures of belonging by letting other people know about it. These things don't exist in some weird isolation. They exist because they're nurtured and fed, and it is upon us to nurture and feed it by bringing other people to awareness of it. It doesn't matter whether they like it or dislike it, but awareness of it from them, so they have a greater level of choice. So I want to thank Steve and the entire team at Humanity Stream to really thank you for all that you're doing to create these cultures, to create this environment where people feel like they belong. And I want to encourage you, dear viewer, dear listener, to not only reach out to me and tell me what you got out of this, and tell Steve also, because he's organized all this, but share it with others. It's really important.
Yes, it's really important, and it's time. This is definitely the moment. It's not a year from now or 3 years from now. It's right now. So,
Absolutely.
Dov, thank you so much. That'll be the last word. Just totally a pleasure having you on with us, and I look forward to more collaborations with you in the future. And viewers, thank you for joining us. Of course, we're on every Wednesday live at this time, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Eastern. Come back and join us. And for Humanity Stream members, I'm doing my viewing party with my own masterclass right now called Higher Self, Higher Purpose, Unlock the Power Within. And we're doing a program tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Eastern. So join us. Okay. Love and peace and blessings, everybody. And have a great rest of the day.